I was getting sick. I was hallucinating, having seizures, and I was on the edge of death multiple times.
He never had this problem the year preceding this. That all of a sudden the pressure's on him, and now he's starting to have all these issues.
Plaintiff John Spann is suing the defendants for $4,971 for unpaid rent and damages. Defendants Jason Parrish and Adriana Walker claim a lack of steady work and health issues forced them to leave without notice. They say they owe nothing.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
I do. I do.
Thank you. You could have a seat, sir. The Honorable Judge Jerry Springer now presiding. Good morning, Judge.
Morning, Najee. How are you?
I'm doing well, Judge. Thank you.
Good.
This is case number 113 on the docket, Spann versus Parrish and Walker.
And thank you, and welcome
Judge.
to all of you. Let's see what we have here. We have the plaintiff, John Spann, and you are suing the defendants, Jason Parrish and Adriana Walker, for $4,971 for failure to pay rent and damages. What is your case?
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is John Spann. Prior to this lease, Your Honor, Jason and Adriana and their father, Jason's father, lived with me in 2019. Mr. Parrish, Wayne Parrish, came to me in December of 2018 asking to rent my apartment. Wayne had stayed up until September and then had moved out, and Jason had taken over the lease at that point. But Wayne had still paid the rent up until that time.
Okay, so for that first year, which is basically the full year of 2019.
Correct.
Even though Wayne didn't live there the whole time, everyone was paying the rent.
Correct.
You were paid up for 2019.
Correct.
Okay, so then before the year ends, he moves out, even though continues to pay the rent. And so now we're to the next year.
Correct.
2020. Wayne's not going to live there anymore.
No, Wayne's out.
But the defendants still wanted to live there.
I certainly did, Your Honor.
Okay, signing a new lease?
Yes, I have the new lease here, Exhibit A.
And what was the rent for the first year they all
The rent was
lived there?
$1,500 a month for the first year.
And now when it's just the defendants living there, how much was the rent?
It was raised an extra $75. I noticed in my electric bill that it was getting a little steep for the next few months. And
okay, but that was signed, so you're entitled to...
Right, so I had to increase the rent.
So everybody signed on to the lease.
Everybody signed the lease for a period of 1 year.
Right.
That was signed on December 29th, or December 27th, 2019.
Right.
Because I require in my lease agreement that I give 60 days written notice whether you're going to stay or leave, so that it gives me ample time to either, make my determination whether to release the apartment and do my work to clean up the damages, so forth and so on.
But the lease was for a full year?
Correct.
It wasn't month to month?
No, it was for a full year.
And when did they move out?
Shortly after they signed the lease, Jason had some issues with his health, and I had taken him to the hospital one time, issues with his heart or his alcoholism. I don't know exactly what it was at that point. And take him to the hospital, they wanted him to stay. I came home, and the next thing I know, he was back home again. Shortly after that, I had another phone call from Adriana stating he was having some more issues. So I went down to the apartment, and I called an ambulance for Jason at that point.
And this was how long after they had signed the lease for?
This was probably around the 7th or 8th.
Of January.
Of January. But I feel, Your Honor, that prior to this whole thing, when his father moved out in September, I felt that the pressure was on Jason, that he knew that he was going to have to maintain the lease and I felt that he had some issues that he wasn't dealing with properly. And there were
How do you guys know each other?
Wayne is my longtime friend for over 50 years now.
Oh, wow.
But when I went to Vietnam in 1970, and I came back, we lost touch with one another. And
Well, thanks for your service,
Thank
I
you, Your
should
Honor.
say. Yeah.
came back in '74 and reconnected a little bit. So I've known Jason pretty much that whole time as well. And we all
Well, it's nothing like suing each other.
Well, it's, I built this apartment to make an income for myself, Your Honor.
I know.
Nothing comes between Johnny and his money.
Yes. Okay. All right. Is it right? Has he told the story correctly at this time? So now we're into
for the most
January.
part, yes.
You have
Just
health reasons. I hope
additional
you're.
things.
I hope you're okay, or you get to be okay. But you made a decision then to leave the apartment.
Because of my alcoholism, I
Yeah.
was getting sick, and
Yes.
I lost my job, and I was trying to find other work, but I couldn't. I was just still sick.
Yes.
And I tried to quit completely, and that's why I ended up in the hospital.
Right.
I was diagnosed with acute liver failure. I was on the edge of death multiple times. I was hallucinating, having seizures, and it started when I tried to quit, which is like, I guess, the beginning of December, when I started having the seizures. And then after the seizures came the hallucinations, which were very vivid. I was having conversations with people that weren't in the room. One of the reasons that Johnny called because we had, if I'm correct, we called the police because I saw raccoons around a bunch of kids out on the porch.
Excuse me, Your Honor. I mean, he never had this problem the year preceding this. That all of a sudden, the pressure's on him to take care of this lease, and now he's starting to have all these issues. The year prior to that, Wayne can attest to the fact that there was very little problems whatsoever.
Look, obviously, I'm not the doctor here.
Right.
But it could be he wasn't trying to go
He
cold.
wasn't drinking back then, is what I'm trying to say. Then all of a sudden, he has a problem in January because he has a lease to pay. Now all these things happen. And like I said, Wayne was there, his father lived with me. We all lived together.
He may not have been trying to go cold turkey back then. I'm not defending him on this. I
Right.
don't. What I'm saying is, I don't know. I don't think if we're not the person going through this, I don't know.
I can appreciate that. I
Yeah, I'm
understand
not
that
sure
well.
I want to say, well, why couldn't you dealt with it before? Why can't you deal with it now?
Right,
I don't
exactly.
know. And maybe you're right. Maybe the additional pressure, if someone is having those kind of issues, suddenly the additional pressure, gee, Dad's not here, I'm going to have to pay the rent alone, and I don't know if I can, maybe that's enough to put him over the edge. Who knows?
I understand it.
So it's January. You guys decide now to leave.
Yeah, and I wanted to add also, because this was not just started happening at the end of the lease. I've been battling alcohol for over 10 years. My father can attest to that. She can attest to that.
Okay.
I've been to rehabs prior to this, so this has been going on. My alcohol problem has been going on for a very long time. And thankfully, today I'm standing here in front of you 10 months sober.
Well,
So-
that's wonderful. Congratulations
Yeah.
on that. So we understand why you left. Now we have to figure out the case that's before the court is you signed a lease, and the lease was for a year. On that issue, you left, and obviously there was not 30 days notice.
No,
So, yeah. Well, what specifically, I understand you got sick. Where did you
He
go
wasn't
to?
coherent.
I wasn't
Your
coherent.
Honor, he wasn't coherent at all.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
was having,
So where did you go?
When I signed
He went to the
signed the
hospital.
lease, I don't even remember signing a lease.
Okay.
I read it and it said that I worked at this place, which I never worked. There's some company on the lease that I worked for. I did not work.
And where did you go?
so during the time that he was in the hospital, and I'll let you know this, that the prior lease, when Wayne was staying with us as well, we were all there, I wasn't working. In my defense, Johnny knew that I wasn't working during the first lease and this current lease as well. I'm a stay-at-home mom. So when he was in the hospital, I'm home panicking, frantic about the whole entire situation. So I had nowhere to go. So I abruptly left because he was the one who made the money for us to stay
And
there.
you left me holding the bag for everything. I mean, you didn't come back to clean the apartment.
I did.
Wayne came back with his ex-wife to clean the apartment.
The damages that he's talking about, Wayne actually said, I quote, "I will come back to fix the damages." And he refused. Johnny refused him to come in to fix the damages.
That's not true.
And you went to live with
My grandmother.
your grandmother. Okay. What we're dealing with, and if you would, if I can ask you to stand up, and Wayne, right? Yeah. You're in an awkward position. Your best friend or a lifelong friend.
I'm kind of here for both of them.
You're kind of here for both. But at
Right.
least let's get this part. Not that it excuses anything legally necessarily, but what your son is saying about the health and the drinking and not even having the particular job he talked about, I'm assuming you can vouch, you're standing here as your son, that that part is the truth.
He definitely wasn't working.
Okay.
That was one of the biggest problems that we had, was that he wasn't working.
Okay. So what we're dealing with here, families have issues. Oftentimes they're based on health. With COVID now, there are a whole bunch of
Correct.
families, and the economic issues, people losing their jobs, et cetera. So what we're dealing with is the human side of it, which says, yikes, they just signed a lease and they're really not able financially to deal with it, which people deal with, but then the landlord's there. Landlord, I'm going to guess you're not a millionaire.
No, I'm not. You're
Right. So
This is part of my income. I mean, Jason was working prior to this. Not that he didn't work at all. Jason had problems that he couldn't hold a job.
My problem with the whole situation is, and how I feel
Yeah.
about the whole situation is, on my son's defense, I feel that my friend Johnny should have never even had him sign the lease in the first place. On Johnny's defense, I know from being his friend that I even helped him build this apartment, that this was going to be part of his retirement income, which he is retired. So I also have to stand up in his defense of why
I got
that
it.
apartment was made in the first place.
Yeah.
I signed the lease, and I thought that I was responsible for that lease.
And you did.
The first 3 months, I paid the security deposit. I paid the first month. I paid the
Of which year are we talking now?
2018.
18, you're right.
Correct.
And even when
So-
you left, you continued paying.
Yes,
Correct.
I
So
did.
I,
I got
paid
that.
the security deposit. I paid the first month's rent. When they first moved in, he still hadn't been working yet, so I paid the full rent for like the first 3 months that we were there.
Did you pay
Right.
anything for year 2?
No.
Okay.
Well, yes.
What?
Sort of, because this is where I'm on my son's defense and I'm against Johnny, is because of us being friends, I thought that if I let Johnny keep my $1,500 security deposit, that this would be over with. We wouldn't be even
Yeah.
standing here right now. And I figured that would be enough time. They would give him the whole month of January to get whatever he had to get done, do, and try to get somebody in there. If he had to suffer for a month of rent, there's been times when it's been empty and he's had to suffer a month of rent.
When
so-
did you, whose daughter moved in?
My daughter moved in
Right.
In
April
when?
1st.
April 1st.
April 1st.
So the months we're talking about,
Or January, February, March.
but your suit, or when I looked at the paper, you're suing basic, it looked like you itemized first month, last month, and security
Well,
deposit.
it was basically the first 3 months.
How do you feel with your dad standing over there?
Well, as he said, you know, they've been friends for a long time, so we were trying
This is-
to keep this from being a
Yeah, you know
tense
what?
situation.
This is really a nice family, all of you. I'm so sorry you're here. So I'm going to try to do something that I think is really fair to both sides here. Okay?
Okay.
Look, lots of people wind up in something they signed, which they did, a lease or whatever, and then they have a regret. Sometimes the regret comes immediately because something untoward happens, whatever. So I understand, man, this is a bad situation. If you had it to do over again, of course you wouldn't have put yourself in this situation. But you did. I believe you clearly should pay the rent for the month of January. You were there part of the month, and he's entitled to a notice. Most states, it's 30 days. He wanted 60 days. It was in the lease there, so you're entitled to that notice. So clearly, even though you didn't stay all of January, you should pay the rent for January. So the months that we haven't dealt with really
Like February and March.
February and March.
Yeah,
Your
I'm still
daughter's there in April, and I'm just going to decide based on the life issues they have to deal with. You're getting the month of January. It's not perfect,
Right,
but
I
it's not
understand.
perfect for them either. I want to keep your friendships, your relationship together. So therefore, on your suit, I fine for the plaintiff in the sum of $1,575. Thank you.
This is really what we wanted. We were there. We felt as though we owed some money, and I think this worked out about as fair as it could possibly work out, so very happy with the results.
Under the circumstances, I felt that it was appropriate the way Judge Sherry ruled on it. I felt that he took some things into consideration, that we are friends, and that it would be beneficial to us to remain friends and not enemies. So, like I said, Wayne and I've known him for almost 50 years, so we don't want to lose that kind of friendship between one another.
Actually, it's been longer than that.
Well, I was away.
I wanted to tell the kids that they got off lucky because the $1,500 security deposit was mine. I paid rent for,
A lot of months.
a lot of months before they even kicked
And I
in.
didn't realize that he had paid the rent. I thought Jason was chipping in, but little did I know that that was happening.
So everybody made out but Wayne.
Hey YouTube, thanks for watching. For more Judge Jerry, click here. For more Jerry Springer, click here.